Chapter 757, Dream Encounter. Someone has infiltrated the compound. Klein didn't immediately sit up. All he did was turn his body to the side and reached his left palm under his pillow. He secretly held death knell, and at the same time, he slowly spread his left hand open, preparing to activate creeping hunger. After knowing that it was difficult to find food for creeping hunger in Backland, he had infiltrated the prisons in Daisy Bay's Canant City, found an inmate on death row, and confirmed that there wasn't any mistake in the judgment before feeding him to the glove. The Rose School of Thought has locked onto me. No, it's impossible for them to be that quick. Besides, if it's them, they wouldn't just come but would wait for an opportunity. They will seize the opportunity when I'm passing by a secluded spot and strike so as to not alarm Backland's official organizations. I donated too much money at the Moon Mass, causing criminals to target me. A generous tycoon who just came to Backland from a foreign land is indeed an easy target. Of course, I can't rule out the routine investigations of the Nighthawks. As thoughts flashed through his mind, Klein heard a soft noise coming from the balcony in the adjoining half-open room. Right on the heels of that, there was the sound of a lock turning as the floor-to-ceiling window was pulled open nearly silently. Klein carefully listened and sensed the footsteps pass through the half-open room and into the corridor. After a pause, the footsteps walked towards the master bedroom before passing it, turning the doorknob to his valet's room. He went into the wrong room, or could it be that he's here to find Richardson? Klein's heart stirred as he released his grip on death knell. He then reached out to the iron cigar case, which wasn't too far. After he removed the wall of spirituality, an illusory figure in a dark red coat and old triangular hat appeared beside him. It then walked into the full-body mirror. When Senner, the wraith marionette, jumped to the glass window in Richardson's room, he saw a figure with orange-yellow skin, raven-black hair, and soft facial features walk out of the room. As for Richardson, he was silently sitting by the edge of his bed, his body leaning forward. His back was hunched up like he was fused into the darkness. Horror colored his face as he showed a weak and stumped expression. Finally, he fell silent. The person is indeed here for Richardson. His traits resemble that of someone from the southern continent. He's agile and skilled. He's likely not an ordinary person. This is a friend that Richardson got to know at the manor in the southern continent, or could it be a maternal relative? Richardson is only a valet with an annual salary of £35. What matter would need his help? Klein guessed as he used Senner's vision to observe. At that moment, he suddenly realized why Richardson was good at observation and often stayed in the balcony to size up any pedestrians. He was afraid of being found. I hope it's not too big a problem and won't affect my plans. I'll later divine the matter. If Richardson is unable to resolve the problem, I'll have to find an excuse to terminate his services. Seeing his valet lie back down, Klein pulled back his wraith marionette. Meanwhile, Leonard Mitchell, who lived at 7 Pinster Street, once again entered the fog-immersed Backland. He had previously questioned the Daily Observer reporter, Mike Joseph, and received the news that Sherlock Moriarty didn't proactively involve himself in Lanevis's matter. Instead, he participated in a discussion after being hired. This made any suspicions regarding him drop drastically. If it wasn't because this detective had been slightly involved in Capham's matter, and how he had a close relationship with Emlyn White from the Harvest Church, Leonard Mitchell would have had thoughts of giving up the investigation to continue his search for N.C. Zangwill. As Sherlock Moriarty didn't have many friends at the Kellogg Club, with one of them dying in the matter involving Prince Edisac while the other was reporter Mike Joseph. Therefore, Leonard only had one target left, Dr. Aaron Series. From the dossiers, this doctor was once involved in a beyonder matter of the monster pathway. After the item was swapped, he stopped being unlucky or having nightmares. His life returned back on track. Hess, most people that Sherlock Moriarty know are involved in beyonder matters. This detective sure isn't an ordinary someone. As Leonard thought, he rang the doorbell in Aaron Series' dream. Upon entering the dream, he casually found a sofa to sit in and said to Dr. Aaron, who was opposite him, "Tell me in detail how you got to know Sherlock Moriarty." In the dream, Aaron didn't lie. He started from how Mrs. Mary had introduced Sherlock Moriarty into the Kellogg Club and how he was one of the recommenders. He continued until the detective suggested that he inform the Church of the Evernight Goddesses bishop about his abnormal matters. The truth is described in the dossiers. Sherlock Moriarty seems rather friendly towards the official Beyonder organizations, and he was endorsed by Isengard Stanton. Leonard glanced at the mustached Sherlock, which Dr. Aaron conjured and retracted his gaze as he listened attentively. After Aaron finished recounting everything in detail, he said, "He headed to the south for a vacation, and he hasn't returned. I've been worried about him all this while. However, he's a detective filled with wisdom and a kind heart. I believe nothing bad will happen to him. I just wish that he can participate in the celebration of my child's birth." Perhaps. Leonard suspected that Sherlock Moriarty might never return to Backland. He then politely bade farewell and walked out of Dr. Aaron's dream. After taking a few steps forward, he subconsciously looked back and saw that inside the house, with a garden, blurry spherical lights that represented different dreams filled the entire space. Everything was fine. Was it a mistake on my part? I keep feeling as though something about me is changing. Leonard muttered as he turned to fly to Pinster Street. Everywhere he could see was covered in dense fog. The street lamps were gloomy and pale. Suddenly, Leonard stopped flying as he cast his gaze at a building. In that house, there were about 5 spherical lights floating in silence, making it look different from the other buildings. However, Leonard's spiritual perception told him that there was apparently a black blob in the house which could absorb all light. Furthermore, he discovered that he didn't recognize the street he was at. He felt alarmed, suspecting if he had seen something he shouldn't see. He hurriedly retracted his gaze as he prepared to leave and head for his residence. At that moment, the building that looked ordinary sounded with a teasing voice. "Why don't you come in for a cup of tea?" Thoughts erupted in Leonard's mind as he flew up at high speeds without even thinking. In his spiritual perception, the terrace houses lining the back, the garden and tiny buildings were burgeoning in size as the windows and doors turned into mouths that were biting at him. The nearby black street lamps were extending in height, making the surroundings appear like a forest of steel that seemed to stop Leonard. Leonard didn't stop or turn back. He felt a chill down his back as it became more obvious and deeper. His body slowly stiffened, as though he was being grabbed by countless invisible hands. Just as he felt that he couldn't hold out any longer, he saw a familiar house where a familiar window and light stood. He held his breath, plunged down abruptly, and fell back into his dream. Phew! He jolted awake and found himself drenched in cold sweat. "Old man, what did I actually encounter?" Leonard retracted his legs from the desk's edge and asked with a sense of lingering fear. The slightly aged voice in his mind replied after a few seconds. "I'm not sure." Leonard's eyelid drooped immediately as he didn't pursue the matter. He then cast his gaze out the window and saw lights everywhere in the Backland night sky. It was tranquil. 160 Birkeland Street, inside Dwayne Dance's mansion. "Sir, Ma'am Wahana Heisen is here." Richardson entered the room and said to Klein. Klein put down his papers and looked up, glancing at his valet. He discovered that he was still an apprehensive man of few words, silent and reserved. There was nothing odd with him. If it wasn't because the divination outcome was okay. Suddenly firing an employee will incur suspicion. Klein silently mumbled. He stood up as though nothing had happened, and he got Richardson to help him wear his coat. 15 minutes later, he was holding his etiquette teacher, Wahana Heisen, in an embrace as he began to learn another common dance used at social events. "I feel as though I'll be losing my job in a few days." After a while, Wahana praised Dwayne Dance for his progress. When she was done, she added, "However, you're still a little restrained. Although you don't have to act like Inti's men who cling closely to the ladies, you don't have to constantly maintain a distance. It's very normal to make occasional contact. The way you are behaving now makes you appear rigid and dull." Klein pulled her in a little and replied with a smile, "I was afraid of being rude." Does this mean that being too close to ladies is an act of rudeness? It also implies I'm full of charm, and that he might embarrass himself if he's too close. This is quite a euphemistic form of praise. Wahana thought and said with a smile, "You have learned well." The dance continued as Klein looked at Wahana Heisen's face as he asked warmly in a casual manner, "Ma'am, you seem frustrated." Wahana lowered her head and chuckled. "It's nothing serious. My husband is a businessman, and he recently had some minor conflicts with some people. We can resolve the matter." "Oh, your question was too direct. Before both parties have established a friendship, it's best not to ask about their matters unless she has made it obvious. Compared to you who comes and goes in families of high society. Thus, knowing many madams and ladies, as a tycoon who just arrived in Backland, I do lack the necessary social connections." Klein nodded gently and said with a smile, "I thought we were no longer strangers." He then skipped the topic and began talking about his own experiences and his neighbors. Wahana would mention a few things in response, allowing Klein to better grasp the traits and preferences of his neighbor. After Wahana left, Klein stood at the door for some time before turning to say to his butler, "Walter, find out what trouble Ma'am Wahana is facing. If she can't resolve it, we will provide her with some timely assistance."